But it was an opportunity to go into flying, and probably the only opportunity I had. There was no way I'd have enough money, and my family would have enough money to send me to any kind of flight school. And even if they did have enough money, the opportunities after I'd gotten out of the flight school were not there, so it wouldn't make sense financially to do something like that. So that door was open, and I went and tested and was able to take advantage of that program. That was the only avenue I had to fly, and I wanted to fly.
Let's pretend I don't know what the Tuskegee Airmen are.
Then I would
What
tell
would you say
them,
to me?
well, I'd tell them the Tuskegee Airmen were a group of black airmen who were trained by the United States Army Air Force, and that they were part of an experiment that was designed, apparently, obviously, to fail.
Tell me who the Tuskegee Airmen are.
The Tuskegee Airmen are people who have been flying for airplanes for a very long time. Young Eagles program is a program where you sometimes get to meet the Tuskegee Airmen, the original ones, and ones today, and go up and fly in airplanes.
The Tuskegee Airmen are a group of group of men pilots that never got their airplane shot down.
And do you know that they were in World War II?
No, I did not know.
When Roosevelt sought the third term, black leaders came to him and said, look, blacks need to be at the point of fighting for their country.
African Americans were being admitted into the military, but in many cases, the jobs that they were assigned were menial.
And Roosevelt said, look, if you'll give me 20% of the black vote, I'll see what I can do about getting them with their hands on the trigger. He got 20% of the black votes, but he didn't feel that he was able to integrate them in the armed forces.
The establishment said, we'll give in. We'll do this black unit, and we'll train them in flying and maintaining aircraft.
The Tuskegee experiment was an experiment that was designed to fail because there was a myth being perpetuated that African Americans didn't have the intelligence to learn how to fly.
And that was the underlying reason why the Tuskegee Airmen was initiated, to fail and prove their point.
Because the word was out, and the word was by the military, blacks can't fight, blacks can't lead, and blacks most assuredly cannot fly combat planes. And this is what everybody believed.
Well, the Tuskegee Airmen really got their start here at Chanute in the form of the 99th Pursuit Squadron, which was the maintenance crew for the flyers. And they started here in March of 1941. The training involved all of the maintenance support training, your mechanics, your engine people, electronics, avionics, communications. This whole unit was going to be self-contained as a black unit with the first one with a flying mission. And so everything had to be set up ahead of time in order for it to all work. And so everyone had to be trained here first. Well, the maintenance training continued here, but the pilot training was at Tuskegee.
So let's go on and train them few there and move them on down south. Not to build them their own schools, because that meant you would have hundreds of students, even though in the segregated environment. Being at Chanute, we could control the influx. The military at that time had really no intentions of ever using black pilots. So why spend all this taxpayer money training black pilots and we don't intend to use them?
In this experiment that was supposed to fail, it was supposed to fail here at Chanute, because they say, see, we told you so. The black soldier can't hack it. So we're not going to go on with pilot training. And when they completed the first class after 28 weeks, and not only did they complete and succeed, they set the highest grade point average in the history of the Chanute Tech Training. Then they were able to move to Tuskegee, and then the pilot candidates could start flying. If they had failed here, there never would have been the Tuskegee Airmen.
We felt that we had to succeed, and those of us who were left, we had the skills, we had the abilities, and we had the fervor to do that.
I think that might have had a great impact on their cohesiveness. To say, hey, it's a bigger thing going on here than us as individuals. Somewhere along the line, somebody probably impressed upon them, hey, the nation is looking at this.
You've got these lumbering bombers, B-17s or B-24s, flying could be up to 100 in one fleet, going in to bomb target. Without protection, they're ripe pickings for enemy fighters, and the Germans were very good at it.
And they gave the fellas a chance to show their mettle. And on the first day, they shot down 19 planes. And after a while, the news began to get out that those fellows with the red tails and the red nacelles were red-tailed angels. And bombers who came over to drop their bombs, they felt when they turned to go home that they had a chance to come back alive if they looked over their shoulder and saw at 2 o'clock or at 10 o'clock a red-tailed sitting on their way. And from then on in, the losses by the bombers, by the red-tailed angels who were the Tuskegee pilots, were reduced to almost nothing. And the news began to get around all over England and Europe that those red tails were saviors and they could fly like the wind.
And that's where their reputation, well-deserved reputation for never losing a bomber to enemy fighters, was gained.
That's business about blacks can't lead, blacks can't fight, and they most assuredly cannot fly complicated fighting planes, was made to look ridiculous.
These were young guys in their 20s and had to persevere under racial discrimination, humiliation, and just being approached like you were subhuman.
All during the war, if you got on a train and sat near the dining car, you had to get up and go to a car right behind the coal car. And German prisoners went back and were seated right next to the bartender's car, which is just the one before the dining car.
If that experiment had failed, probably the face of history would have been changed. as a result of the Tuskegee Airmen experiment, proving that African Americans can do everything in the military that anyone else can do, that caused the armed services to become integrated.
Striking new ground and opening up new ways are not done by groups. It is done by individuals. With all due credit to the young lady who sat on the bus and started the riots in Alabama in the 50s, we had already in the 40s sat on the bus and changed America.
After World War II ended, the Tuskegee Airmen had another fight on their hands, and that was the fight for equality. So when they got back, there was still rampant prejudice, and they were treated the same way they were treated when they left to go to World War II.
They were fighting for victory in Europe, but victory at home. And they achieved the victory in Europe, but it didn't work out that way at home.
I don't know of any of them that was able to get a job at a commercial airline as a commercial pilot. And that's the sad thing about it. All of that talent, then all those dreams were wasted.
When I got out of the service, I could not go into commercial aviation because blacks were not accepted at that time. By the time they were accepted, I was too old to apply for a job.
By then, a lot of them had, if they were still flying, had gotten to an age where they weren't really prime candidates for airlines to look to and things like that. Knowing the mentality of pilots in general, that they were insulted, and rightly so. There's not an awful lot of black airline pilots today.
Perhaps if these pilots who came back from the war could have acquired meaningful meaningful employment in commercial aviation, I don't think it would look today as it does. You take a young child of color out at the airport, and it looks like a foreign country.